Did you know that homosexuality was widely accepted in ancient Rome? But did you also know that the concept of gay concubines was also prevalent in their society? Were they living a life of luxury, or were they oppressed and living in fear? Did they have any right, or were they treated as mere objects? Let's explore the scary reality of being a gay concubine in the Roman Empire. In ancient Rome, homosexuality was a prevalent practice, but the language didn't distinguish between same-sex and mixed relationships. However, those who were passive in homosexual relationships faced significant prejudice. The foundation of Roman homosexuality was power dynamics, with a focus on masculinity through penetration. Women were expected to be submissive to their husbands' sexual infidelities, while men could philander as much as they wanted, provided their mistresses were either married or above a certain age. Brothels, prostitutes, and dancing girls were considered fair games, as were older males, as long as the penetrator held the power. Men who allowed themselves to be penetrated were seen as lacking in manliness, and same-sex relationships were subject to many restrictions. The prevalence of slavery in Rome had a profound impact on male homosexual relationships, as did the widespread adoption of the Hellenistic culture. This shift in attitudes would have less of an impact if Rome hadn't simultaneously become a large-scale slave-owning society due to its overseas conquests. It was common for Roman men to keep a male concubine before getting officially married. This type of concubinage was typically described as a stable, non-exclusive sexual relationship. Discover the intricate world of concubines in ancient Rome, where they held a special status in the household hierarchy. According to the renowned Italian classicist Eva Cantarella, in ancient Rome, the role of a concubine was highly regarded and held a special elevated status within the hierarchy of household slaves. However, this status was threatened by the introduction of a wife, as indicated in a wedding hymn by Catullus. The concubine was expected to transition from a receptive sex object to one who performs penetrative sex and might father children with women of the household, including the wife. Females in the situation of a concubine were also treated with significance, occupying 5 stanzas of Catullus' wedding poem. The concubine played an active role in ceremonies, distributing traditional nuts. It wasn't derogatory to be called a concubine, as the title was often inscribed on tombstones. The relationship between a concubine and his master was complex, influenced by social norms and power dynamics. The relationship between a man and his concubine in ancient Rome could be discreet or more open. Male concubines were sometimes invited to dinner parties with their companions. Surprisingly, sources even suggest that a prized concubine might pass from father to son as an especially coveted inheritance. Military officers on campaign might also be accompanied by a concubine, similar to the role of the catamite or puer delicatus. The role of the concubine was often compared to that of Ganymede, the Trojan prince abducted by Jove to serve as his cupbearer. From Nero kicking his pregnant wife to death to Hadrian's great love Antoninus, let's explore the fascinating and often scandalous romantic lives of these emperors. During the early imperial era, male concubines or same-sex weddings were not technically recognized by Roman law, but were still surprisingly common. Even the emperors were doing it. Peeking behind the curtains into the private lives of the Roman emperors offers an eye-opening experience into the customs, mores, and attitudes of the ancient world. During the ancient Roman times, some emperors like Nero and Hadrian had tumultuous personal lives when it came to their romantic relationships. Nero remorsefully kicked his pregnant wife Poppaea Sabina to death and later married Sporus, a young man who resembled her in a traditional ceremony despite him not being a woman. Sporus would also join Nero and Pythagoras in their tribalism. Hadrian's great love of his life, Antoninus, was a young man from Bithynia who traveled with him to the imperial court. Antoninus died tragically during Hadrian's tour through Egypt, and Hadrian found the city of Antinopolis in his memory. Emperors in the 3rd century AD continued this trend, with Emperor Elagabalus having a slew of male lovers, including Heraclius and Zodicus. Ancient Rome accepted homosexuality and male concubines for free men in the active role. Relationships with slaves weren't stigmatized, but some were exploitative. Genuine love relationships were accepted, but Roman culture contributed little to informed acceptance, unlike classical Greece.